You're looking at fire, but there's no stock footage, no plugins, no particles, and no After Effects, just DaVinci Resolve. And this is super easy to do, and I'm gonna show you how to make it. We're mainly using just a single node here, so this is really easy to follow along with. This is a great beginner's tutorial if you're trying to figure out how to use Fusion. Hi, my name is Ethan Robbins. I've been doing video production for about 15 years now, and I've done millions of views across the various channels that I've made content for, so I kind of know what I'm doing in this space. So let's not waste another second and figure out how to make fire. I'm gonna walk you guys through this. So this is my composition right here, and you can see everything's burning, everything's going up. Now, this is just an image I took from Google Images. I just searched house and set my filter to large image, so I had a lot of resolution to work with. This is just one of those images. I'm gonna jump into the Fusion page, and you can see our node tree really isn't very complicated. There's not a lot going on here. So here's the cheat code when understanding how this works, is this node right here called fast noise. Now, fast noise is a very interesting effect built into DaVinci Resolve. You can get fast noise to look like a lot of things. Essentially, it's just fractal noise or fractal pattern. I remember it was fractal something inside of After Effects. That's essentially all it is. Even on your default toolbar up inside of Fusion, you'll find it right here, fast noise. You can just drag it down into your composition here, but that's mainly what we're working with. So to set up your composition, go to the effects panel on the edit page, drag in a Fusion composition, jump into that Fusion composition, and the first thing you want to do is make a background node, bring down the alpha so you have a transparent background, and connect that to your media out. Once you have that going, you just want to start adding things onto your flow line from here. You just want to start building things on to what you already have here, and you're good to go. So the very first thing I did was just decide on what house image I'm going to be using. I dragged it into my project. This is the media in one you see right here. I used a transform node to blow it up, make it a little bit bigger. Without that, this is how big the original picture was, and that's obviously not good. So I blew it up. Now, here's what's interesting. With nodes, you can make two different outputs from a single node. So what I did was, instead of just connecting to one merge right here early on in my flow line, I connected to another one down here. And this is the last thing that the program reads before it sends to media out. So I have two copies now, right? I have the first one being connected right here, and I have the second one being connected right here. Now, in between those two copies of the house, there are two merge nodes here, right? So you might be wondering what's going on, what's within these two merge nodes? Well, I'll show you. These two merge nodes are smoke and fire, okay? Now, you gotta understand, even though we're not working with layers inside of After Effects, nodes still kind of work in a layer-like fashion. So at the top of your node tree, or at the beginning of your node tree, is what's going to be shown furthest back, okay? The background is our background of the image. Down here, I made a cutout of the house. I know that's kind of a weird thought, right? And weird thing, but you can see the second connection from the home at the very end of the flow line. I made a mask, a polygon mask, drew it out around the house. So then everything that occurs between the background image being the full image of the house and the front image being just the cutout of the house can appear to be fire and smoke. This merge right here contains smoke. So if I turn that off, you can see that the smoke being blown away in the wind goes away. So this is smoke right here, and it's just being generated with fast noise and color corrector. That's it. And I made the shape of the smoke with my mask here. And this one is the flame itself, right? And that's pretty much it. It's just, again, it's just fast noise and color corrector and a polygon mask for the shape, and that's it. It's extremely simple. So this is what our smoke looks like. So these are the two nodes making smoke, okay? So I'm going to copy this, and we'll inspect this right here. So this is fast noise. This is how I have things set up. Now, watch what happens to detail when I bring this down. Detail is just like how detailed you want your clouds or your shapes or whatever being shown on screen to be. Contrast is obviously just that, contrast. You get higher contrast, lower contrast. I typically like to go for a high contrast look in whatever I'm making with my fast noise nodes, but that's just my style, and it depends on what you're making. I didn't touch brightness here, but scale is also important too, because the bigger the scale, the more you see. So it depends on how big you want your clouds. And then in color corrector, I just lowered the gain, lowered the lift, upped the gamut, upped the brightness a little bit, and that gives us the look here, and then we cut it out into this shape, and this is what we get. That's our smoke look right there. And again, it's not very crazy. You don't see anything like big billowing pillars of smoke. You don't see any of that. This is just a very much less is more kind of thing, right? So you don't want to overdo what you're doing with your VFX. You just want to leave it there. Now, before we move on to the flame, I want to cover color here in the fast noise for the smoke. If you jump over to color, you have an option to set a 2-color setting here. I didn't go for that. I went for the gradient just because in smoke, typically the smoke is the blackest, the closest to the flame, and the further away you get, the more brown or the more gray it becomes, right? So I implemented that here. You could see in my inspector, one end of the gradient is black and the other end is kind of like this light brown color. And that's reflected right here where this side is black. You can see if I move that, it gets darker and grayer. I'm going to undo that. And this side is the brown. So if I pull this further down, you see it gets browner. So this is my line right here. I'm going to undo that again so it goes back to where it was. But that's how that works. And to choose your color, you literally just pick your handle and then set your color. And then you want to mess with it. You want to make sure everything is in the right spot. This is very much a, does it look right? Well, then it's right sort of thing. So don't overthink anything when you're doing something like this. This is great practice. So don't get too caught up on it. I didn't touch anything in image or settings, but now that we've covered this, let's move on to the flame. So now we're going to add the flame in, right? This is what the flame looks like. Now, you're not seeing the house in front of it just because this is the house cutout that I was telling you about earlier. And I haven't set that to view, but I just want to show you what the flame looks like so that when we do turn the house on, it looks like the house is on fire from the back. So let's go back to the flame here. This is what my fast noise settings look like. Now, there's a couple things going on here in addition to the color, right? So another thing that I did here was I animated the center position of the noise to start from one place and then move upwards, just because when fire burns, it burns from a bottom up sort of motion, or at least that's how I've always thought of it in my mind. And that's a detail I wanted to include here. So you see, as this fire is burning, our little center point is going up. I mean, and it looks realistic enough. And just if you were curious, this is what the pattern looks like here. You can see it moving up with the center point right here. Here's how I set my settings here. I turned the detail up quite a bit. I wanted to go higher than what the default was able to give me. So I set that to around 8.8. I upped the contrast to about 1.5 and lowered the brightness to about negative 0.22. And that gave me this sort of look right here. And then I added some color corrector, turned up the gain and the saturation. And that's all I did in this color corrector node. And that was what took me from this to this. And this is a point that I hope that you take away from this when building your VFX, is use a single node to make just a few changes. Stack your nodes on top of each other because that's how you build specific effects and that's how you build specific looks and that's how you discover new things when you're practicing, right? So from here, I took this color corrector node, I added another one, right? Let me turn that on. And I only turned it on within the confines of this space. Now, what this one does is it ups the gain just a little bit. So when we're looking at the full thing, let me show you what the difference here is. You see, it's just a little bit of brightness. So when we see the house here, watch me turn this on and off so you can see the difference. See, there's a little bit of brightness around the bottom of the house, just because as we get closer to the bottom of the fire, it's obviously going to be brighter than it's going to be at the top of the fire, just because the bottom of the fire is the source of the light. I mean, all fire is a source of light, but it's going to burn brighter down at the bottom. And this is just a little detail that you don't really think about when you're looking at it, but it makes sense to add. So I added it, like I said, turned up the gain, as you can see right here, and confined it to within just this space. And again, I want to reiterate, this is all being done with just fast noise and color corrector. That's it. Just fast noise and color corrector. And you get a pretty realistic looking fire from a static shot, right? Like that's not the worst fire you've ever seen cooked up in just a couple of minutes. And this is good practice if you've never done it before. Then again, I took everything that creates the flame effect and confined it to within this space. Now, this is a pretty funky looking mask for the flame that we're getting, but you can see it is pretty sensitive to how you move it. So sometimes a funky mask lends itself more to how fire actually moves and the shape that fire actually takes, because fire is very unpredictable. It's very just chaotic. It moves very quickly. And speaking of moving quickly, one thing you want to do in both the smoke and the flame is turn up the seethe rate, right? So seething is just how much the pattern animates or the pattern moves. So if you set the seethe rate up a little bit, it's just going to move by itself. Let me jump to this and you see the motion here, the movement. Well, that's because I have the seethe rate turned up, and same thing goes here. I have the seethe rate much lower on this one. This is just 0.15, but nonetheless still works. And then going back to where we started, on top of the smoke and the flame and the background, I have yet another cutout of the house, because we're bringing another output from the original house down here, merging it back into the flow line, cutting it out so that this is all that we see, and this is in front of the flame and the smoke. That's it. There's not much going on. And then I took this into the color page and added one of my LUTs. So very small, very minor here, just because, again, less is more. This is what it looks like without the LUT. This is what it looks like turned on. A little bit of contrast, a little bit of color contrast as well. And then we jump back to the edit page. This is what we get. the flame burns a little redder, the smoke a little darker, and the house has a little bit more color to it. It doesn't necessarily look like it's burning on the front yet, but the fire just hasn't progressed to that point. So this is how you make realistic fire inside of DaVinci Resolve. As you can see, it's actually quite simple. There's the stigma that if you're not using After Effects, you can't make things like this. But to be honest, folks, that's just because you can make whatever you want to make inside of DaVinci Resolve, and you can make it work just fine. So try this on your next scene. Maybe it's a post-apocalyptic sky or a campfire, maybe just a window reflection, whatever you want to try it. But just remember that chaos lives in the noise. Fast noise. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope you learned something. If you have any questions, leave them down in the comments. And if you have any thoughts you want to share, leave them down in the comments too. Don't forget to like this video. And most importantly, subscribe to the channel for more tips and tricks just like this. And you can learn anything you need to learn about DaVinci Resolve. And in the meantime, I will see you in the next video. Thank you so much for watching.